Hello, shalom, greetings to you. I'm Brother and Professor David from the University of the Most High. I'm here to present truth to those in power, those out of power, those who only wish they had a little power. Anybody within the sound of my voice, I say shalom to you, greetings, and I'm here today actually because of some requests that were made from a previous video I made a little while ago, and I was surprised that the number of positive responses to that video and a number of requests were made for me to make another video. And so this is the main reason I'm here. And after much soul searching and supplication, that is intense prayer for guidance from the Most High, my Heavenly Father, I have come back to share some more thoughts from on high with you. I just want to say I really appreciate the feedback and the kind words that I've received in previous presentations, as I've indicated, and I try to respond to each and every one of you. So I acknowledge you, and I hold you in very high esteem. But without any further ado, let's get into our topic for today, which is on the subject of work. You know, for many people today, the word work might be one of the only four-letter words that they don't use frequently. And I say that slightly in jest. But have you noticed that people quite often will say things like, wow, I don't want to do this. This seems like a lot of work. Or how could I avoid, how can I make this thing easier? It's a lot of work. And if you're in an office, your co-workers probably say things like, oh man, I can't wait for the weekend. Or, if it's Friday, thank God it's Friday. Oh yeah, the weekend's coming. I don't have to work for a couple of days. I'm looking forward to that, right? And people always seem to be taking vacations or talking about the vacation that they had or the one that they're going to have. And even when they're on vacation, they're letting people know through social media, hey guys, I'm on vacation right now. I'm not working. Wow, look at me. Aren't I something? And this whole idea that work is the enemy. Work is some big, ugly monster that is against us, and we want to avoid it as much as possible. This seems to be the order of the day these days. So I would like to take a look at what Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, what is his view on work? Does he consider work to be some sort of a punishment or a curse that he's put on mankind? Let's take a look, a serious look. And I'd like to take you with me on a little journey in the world of work from the perspective of our Heavenly Father. In the book of Colossians, which the many Gentile Christians refer to as the New Testament, in the book of Colossians, the first book, in chapter 3, in verse 23, says this: whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for Yahweh, not for human masters. And to update the English to today's contemporary English, it would mean to me, whatever you do, do it with all you've got. Do it with gusto. Do it with passion. Do it because you're working for Yahweh, the Most High God, your Heavenly Father, your Creator, not for a human being, i.e., the boss, the man, the big cheese. Don't work as if you're working for a human being. Work as though you're working for the Most High God. So this tells me that work is something that God, Yahweh, approves of. Not only approves of, but advocates and promotes. Second one I want to share with you is taken from the book of Proverbs, and the book of Proverbs is literally littered with verses and thoughts on the world of work and the wise and the unwise, who are also called fools in the book of Proverbs. But let's take a look at this verse here in the 13th chapter of the book of Proverbs, and verse number 4 tells us, a sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. Okay? A sluggard, which is an old English word for a lazy person, try to be kind here, a person who avoids work at all costs, that kind of person, the appetite of that person is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. Right? So here we have a contrast between the lazy person who's never satisfied and the diligent or hard-working person who is fully satisfied. Another proverb is that found in chapter 12 and verse 11 that says, those who work the land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. They're foolish. All right, so if you work hard, you work the land, which to me is a metaphor for working wherever it is. It's not necessarily on the land. That's where most people worked in those days, as it was an agricultural age. Now we're in a more technological age. This can be applied to any kind of legitimate work, good work that you do. You should do it with passion, with gusto, with zeal. And they will have abundant food, abundant life. They will be living in abundance. But those who chase fantasies, they won't. It's pure and simple. Working is good. And let's look at Proverbs 12 and verse 24. This says, diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. So lazy people may very well end up in, what do we call them, sweatshops, where you're almost forced to work. And whereas the diligent, the hardworking people will rule. They will be on top. They'll be in charge. And this has been borne out for centuries, for thousands of years. This is very often the case. Those who are on top are quite often the ones that get up early in the morning. They put in a lot of hours. They work hard, work smart, and usually end up managing or supervising or being in charge of the work that some of the lazier people, the less diligent, end up working for the diligent. And you may not like to hear this, but I'm telling you the truth. As I said before, I speak truth to powerful people and those who have no power. I'm an Israelite, and I was sent by the Most High to speak truth to everyone, especially in these end times that we're living in. So Proverbs 14:23, in all labors there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. John 5:17. This is Yeshua speaking. And we Israelites recognize the Messiah and his entrance into this world 2,000 years ago. And he put it very well, as he always did. He was the Son of the Most High God. He represented God to man. And what he said in John 5:17 was, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." So if working is something bad, well, why is God doing it? Why is Yeshua doing it? Until now, he says, my Father is working and I am working. Very clear. Genesis 2:3. Let's go back now to the book of beginnings, the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 3. Then God blessed the seventh day, made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Very clear. He rested on the seventh day. Why? To rest from all the work that he had done. And believe me, there must have been a lot of work involved in creating the entire world, everything we know in the world, in only 6 days. That must have been some intense work, okay? And it was our Creator who was engaged in work for 6 days. Then he rested on the seventh day, and he rested from all the work that he had done. So, we can see that throughout the scriptures, both in the so-called Old Testament and the so-called New Testament, work is highly valued. It's not denigrated. It's not avoided. It's not seen as some sort of divine curse on mankind. It is something that God himself is engaged in, and so is his Son, still engaged in the work of redeeming us right now, the work of bringing us back into the fold. And I could go on there. I'll save that for another time. But one more thing I want to add before I close. Genesis 2:3 said that he rested from all the work that he had done, all the creating that the Creator had done. And this is reiterated in one of the commandments, no less, the commandment to the Israelites. In Exodus 20, verse 8 to 11, he says to Israel, remember the Sabbath day, the Shabbat, keep it holy. And he goes further. He doesn't just leave it at that. He gives a reason. He gives a rationale for this commandment. He says, in 6 days, or 6 days, you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath, or Shabbat, of Yahweh your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. For, and this is the rationale again, he gives a reason. For, in 6 days, the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore, the Lord blessed the Shabbat, the seventh day, and hallowed it. So, my brothers and sisters, in closing, work is of the Lord, it's of Yahweh. He approves of it. He engages in it himself. He sets an example for us, especially we Israelites. He set the example, and he even commanded us. This is a commandment for us, not just to rest on the Shabbat, which many focus on, and ignore the rest of the commandments. And in fact, he says more about work than he does about rest. He says that in 6 days we should do all our work, and we should rest on the Sabbath. And when we rest, not even our guests should be working. Not even the animals that we may have should be working. It's important. It's very important to Yahweh that we rest from our labors, but we're also commanded to work. It says, in 6 days you shall labor. Shall means you have no choice. It's a must. All right? You shall labor. It's a legal term that's even used today in legal documentation. Anytime you see the word shall, that is a command. It is not optional. It is mandatory. All right? So it is mandatory. It is a must for you to work and to do all your work in those 6 days, and then you can enjoy the blessing of rest. I want to just say to you out there, it was not an accident that you saw this video, and I trust that you have been blessed by this. I want to see some of your comments, so if you will be so kind as to just below this video, there's a place for you to respond. Drop me a line, maybe just a sentence or two, and tell me what you think. How have you been blessed by this? Do you disagree with anything? I'm open to all kinds of responses. All right. So shalom to you. May Yahweh continue to direct your paths. Until next time, again, shalom.